Om 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 Ganana Antva Ganapatigam Havamahe Kavim Kaviram Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashranmanuti Visida Sadhanam Om Shri Maha Ganapataye Namaha Om Gungurubhyo Namaha Om Aim Saraswatyay Namaha Om Namah Shivaya. Om Sita, please come in.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm so happy and inspired to be in a collective satsang with all of you and to hear your insights and your wisdom on the subject of healing. So, I just had a bunch of dental work done. So I'm healing and my mouth is like all sore. So you may see me like putting some medicine in my mouth. But for me, in regards to this subject of healing, I think that first we just have to hold space for the idea that healing is possible and open our hearts to that idea in our minds. And if we don't do that, I feel like it will never come. So we have to be open to the potential of healing. And I'm just looking forward to hearing from all of you. I'm just introducing myself now, really. We'll get into it, but I love the way that we've been gathering to really receive knowledge from the collective and to inspire and uplift each other in a very hard time for humanity as a whole. So just introductions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sita. Mahadevi, Brett.
Okay, well, I have a lot of thoughts about the concept of healing right now. Prem and I were talking about this earlier today because we're at a period of time where we're have you ever had a wound that you've scratched, like a scab, and it just won't heal, right? We keep scratching and scratching and scratching, and it just won't heal. And I think this period of time is going to create quite a scar. It'll be like a universal scar. And I have a big scar. I actually have a big scar on my arm that helps me tell my left from my right, that I got when I was 10 years old. And that scar has not only taught me left from right, but it's also a reminder of how I got the scar and, my history and the kind of person that I was that got that. And I think that this scar from this period of time will be a reminder for us that we have to work towards something else so that we don't scar ourselves again, and that we don't keep, scratching at the wound or taking the Band-Aid off before it's ready, and that we have to apply a lot of patience and a lot of cream and a lot of good things to a time period that's going to be very, very tough for us. So I'll start with that thought, that scars are not necessarily bad things, that we can learn from them, and that we always have to see what it is that we don't want the world to look like in order to achieve what we want the world to look like. And that's part of the process of healing. So with that thought, I'll turn it over to Premji and let him take over.
Thank you so much, Sita and Mahadevi, Liz and Brett, for introducing this webinar. This is kind of our little practice to try to get together and address, whatever is the most critical in terms of adjusting ourselves to these modern times in so many ways that we have to do. Um, of course, three of us have probably three different things to tell you, but they're all interconnected. For me, healing has been always a big process, and it's been a big learning curve. um, I had to learn to first create, I guess, problems in my life and other people's lives before I could even think of healing. I used to usually think healing is just limited to when you're sick or when people, do different things. But actually, the greatest healing that I think has ever taken place in any one of our lives is that personal healing. That personal healing is like an adjustment of a lens of how we see everything. If we see the world, we see the world through our own eyes, through our own selves. So the greater transformation and healing we can affect within us, the better way will be for us to relate to others. The better will be the way we will see others and relate to others. The ultimate, I think, form of healing is the realization that we're all one. And my personal take tonight is more so on just why and how healing. And perhaps if we have a little time, we can take it all the way to, the modern, even current political situation. And all that is interrelated. And we're really blessed to be part of these times that we can look at all this as an opportunity for all of us to grow individually as well as collectively. So when you, long time ago when I was in Shivananda Swami's ashram in India, maybe my first time, some 35 years ago, there was a placard or like some kind of a writing where he said, life is full of difficulties, therefore do not try to solve them. And the last line was, lead the divine life. And I thought, my God, how interesting this is. First of all, of course, life is full of difficulties because, you solve one problem, another, or one challenge, and another one, comes in its place. And this is just how we move through life. But then again, if the life is full of problems and therefore do not try to solve them, it doesn't mean that we don't take practical steps to do things. But what it means is that last sentence, lead a divine life, meaning affect the inner healing, transform yourself in the ways that you can. And, if you need the help from somebody, that's also fine. But this is just how we, that struck me when I was there. And I was forever using this in my workshops and webinars as an inspiration for people, because sometimes we feel like we're bogged down by problems, and everybody's life is a bit of a mix of of soap opera and dramas, and seemingly unchanging situations. And so this is what we may call simply life. It's a law of change. However, each of the challenges that we individually and collectively are facing are also a part of of healing process. So first of all, I think we need to look at our lives in a more synthetic way, which is an Eastern way of seeing things. You see, when you overanalyze your life, you're going to see some gains and some losses, and the gains are going to have a certain sway over you, and some losses are going to have a sway over you. Whereas the synthetic approach to life would be to kind of take them all as one and look at each experience that comes to you as a potential for uh, creating a greater integration within you and greater alignment with others, and I always say nature and creation, and to ultimately to the experience of oneness. So at some point, there's a little story. A man went to some wise person and he said, okay, I really want to dedicate myself to a spiritual life, but my life is full of obstacles. And the wise man asked him, so what are your obstacles? And he said, well, like everybody else, I'm married, I have two children, I work. 9 to 5, a mortgage to pay, taxes to pay. We have an old president doesn't want to leave the White House. We have a new president that can't really get in. It's too small of a door. So I don't know. That's kind of my life. And then a wise man, what did he say? He said, okay, there's one thing that you don't quite see clearly, and that is the obstacles are the path, right? Obstacles are the path, meaning the very obstacles are the way to heal. Because we cannot have a progress or an inner unfoldment, outer unfoldment in a society. We cannot have an evolution without some potential or possible or real difficulties. Otherwise, there will be a stagnation in creation. It's like a person who is scaling the mountain peaks, right? We have to scale different obstacles and face many, many challenges before we can reclaim that peak ourselves. Mount Everest for everybody. So the same thing is for healing. There's no healing in reality without the presence of some kind of a disease of some sort, or without some kind of an imbalance that requires a remedy. So we can say that in some way, we're all here. We were born to heal and to be healed, right? In that sense, we arrived to this, planet, and we were born imperfect, right? So to expect some great degree of perfection, at least in our times, would be irrational. And we see everybody making some steps towards perfecting themselves. Everyone labors in order to attain perfection. So a process of healing is ingrained in living on this planet as human being. I think this is how it is when we look at. Sometimes I think of life of Jesus, and I think how beautiful his life was, and he always went where the healing was needed. He always propagated the healing. Now, of course, he was a very highly, realized master or incarnation or whatever. And we know that his teaching sometimes was strong, tough, and very direct, but at the same time, he always was going in a direction of those that needed adjustments, that needed the healing. So a process of healing is such that it acknowledges that we are less than perfect. In fact, we can call ourselves work in progress, as most people like to call it. And I like to call it also as the divine in the process of, in unfoldment process, in the process of unfolding the divine. Okay, so now taking this to our modern times, we realize that one of the greatest challenges that the modern civilization has ever faced is really what's going on right now. I am sure that there were civilizations before us that faced their own challenges, but this one speaks very deeply to all of us, especially people who are on the spiritual path. We know that this is a coronavirus time, and we're aware of all kinds of problems that have risen before because of this. However, we have to admit also that this is a wonderful opportunity for all of us to reevaluate our lives. And I think we have been called upon to initiate healing with ourselves, within ourselves, and then, of course, with one another. So we are to heal the foundation of our lives, not just without, but I would say first within, our relationship with nature, and ultimately a relationship with ourselves. So we can look at it from this perspective, that perspective, but I always believe that every transformation, if you want to see a real transformation in your life, always transform it from inside out. This is the way the yoga works also. We know that. So our separation, so this is the time for a deep reflection, deep inner work. And of course, some external work here, if we apply this to all the challenges that we have to do some external work too. But the our separation from nature, uh, was so profound that the nature basically had no other means but to, in some ways, punish us. But I would not like to use the word. It just reprimand us, perhaps, is better. And now we are all on a healing journey, whether we like it or not. So, over the past few centuries, and specifically now in this one, we the humans, right, have accomplished an incredible feat, if I may call it. We did something unthinkable. What do you think it is? We have abandoned our reasoning, I think. You see, that's where the healing needs to come. We have abandoned our reasoning because if we used our reasoning in a proper way, we would have not ever ended up in these problems. Not just that, we have also distanced ourselves so effectively from the mother, from nature, from our bodies, so that the inner knowledge that we naturally have, which is in the form of intuition and some instincts also, is making it difficult for us to access it, right? Because when you're connected with nature, then you're also connected with this knowledge. You know, if your body tells you something and you don't do it, you need healing. If your mind tells you something, your emotions, your feelings, and whatever, the thoughts are telling you something, and you're not doing anything about this, then you need healing. So, like this, lifetime after lifetime, we've done all this, whatever we've done, good things and bad things. But nevertheless, we all are in the process of healing. We have been, completely called upon to do that. See, life is like this. Whenever a new challenging situation develops, what is our first thought? Somehow, deep inside yourself, you think, I'm not ready for it. I have to prepare myself properly for it. I need more time for it. This is how we approach our individual problems. And now, with the coronavirus, which is coming a full swing as a humanity, we were not prepared for it. And we will never be prepared for it. There's nobody who is really or ever completely prepared for any kind of things like that. So that's okay. But what's so interesting is that the life is nothing but a constant challenge. If you really think of your own life, you may say, oh, I'm just choosing to do this and not to choose that. But you cannot choose challenges, exactly, because the challenge is an intrinsic part of life, the inherent. Uh, there's no place you can go to that doesn't have certain types of challenges. There's no person you're going to ever meet in your life that has a clean slate and they say, oh, I just met Buddha. Well, good luck. We're all Buddhas and we're all Jesuses and we're all, Swami Shivanandas. But this is how it is. We're kind of understanding that the challenge will be always there. You want to see perfection and you don't see it. So what ends up happening, we enter into this rather violent relationship with the world, with ourselves and everything. In reality, we really do that because we want to see everything perfect. But starting with this, we accept that there is a challenge. But the good news is this, that with challenges come the display of strength. Sometimes you may wait a little bit, it's like a seed, but in reality, you never know how much strength you have until life, or you can say nature, puts you to test. Have you ever noticed that? If you were to be left to yourself to figure out what kind of life you think would be the best for you to grow strong, to be, a kind person and everything, you will never be able to design it. There's a master designer above us whose name we may call God or Supreme Consciousness or reality or Buddha, any way you like. So you cannot design the plan or work out a plan to unfold all your strengths unless life itself helps you do it, unless the nature helps you do it. And this is also now applicable to modern times. See, what the life does, it continuously thwarts, in a sense, our likes and dislikes and desires and expectations and everything. What life does, it puts us into predicaments we never dreamt about, right? We could not imagine. We would have not wanted either for most of it. But it is in these times that often we have managed to summon our inner powers and try to work our way out. And this is where the transformation took place. Now, you can take that into a modern time and look at the coronavirus. What an opportunity. Like, we can feel bad, and there's lots of bad things going on, of course, with people who are suffering, and there's the economy, and everything is shaking. The whole body of this civilization is shaking because a lot of things were not right, And if we look at that, of course, we need a new political system. We need everything. So what I'm going to just focus on for a few more minutes, if you don't mind, is simply like this. Challenges will be there, but our capacity to solve the challenges requires a few things. One, we need to have a calm mind. This is not always easy to have. We have to have some level of alertness or mindfulness, logical thinking, as well as the quality of the heart, because they need to come together. Compassion, sympathy, deep love, not just any love. This is of course all easier said than done, but it's a very wonderful thing to do. So now I think I would want to say a few things about healing itself. I'm taking the stand more from like an inner work, which is kind of how I usually talk, and I hope you don't mind me saying this. But to heal, what does it mean? In reality, to heal, it means to realign with the laws existent in this creation. We call it dharma, we call it love, we call it ahimsa, we call it by all names. These are the laws that sustain the things and the beings in a certain harmony. And so to really be healed means to resonate in harmony within and with others. It's like playing your favorite instruments in a band or orchestra, right? So you have to learn to attune yourself to the rest of the musicians. If you want to play some weird things on everything, you may need some healing. They may pull you down or maybe throw you out of the band. So I think healing is a beautiful subject, and I hope I will give some chance to my co-host to speak in a minute. I just wanted to focus on a little foundation of it. The way I think of this is that healing or growing, a process of change, is never linear, but it's rather rhythmic and gradual, sometimes also almost spiral. Sometimes you make 2 steps forward and you make 3 steps back. Then you have to race forward. And it's like that. Then you get better, you make 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and then hopefully 3 steps forward and everything. But there's always a little return. A spiral always takes you a little back to master the lessons you have not mastered. I mean, it's easy to think, today I should be here, and 3 months' time, I will be there. But in the spiritual life, there is no a linear measurement of qualities, virtues, or anything. If you really think about this, we do not progress in our pranayama or asana or meditation in a linear way. I sit today for 10 minutes, and 3 months' time, I sit for 30 minutes, and I make a big progress. But what about all that life inside, in the mind, in your heart, and everything? So we are in this rhythmic web and flow of life's tides, if I may say. So we also, in this process of healing, the person has to be the healed. He also, she has to become the healer. There's no healing that takes place from outside. The healing takes place only when we take an active role of a researcher and finding the correct values and correct ways of how we're going to step out of certain situation. Applying this to a political situation today, to coronavirus today, each one of us is like that. We're to be healed and we got to be the healers. We're going to take some very strange juxtaposition here in which there is no an external party, but everything is within us. And the important part of any healing, whether personal or society type of healing, is to understand the mental processes, the values, the principles that caused these particular issues that require healing. You see, as long as our thinking does not change, then we will always recreate the problem. I mean, I have seen this in my life. Sometimes it's like a groundhog day. You know, you think, okay, I should be out of this problem and this situation, only to find yourself you're back in. And very often, this thinking, what I'm talking about, is not just simple thought processes. You have to address some very deep, instinctive ways of seeing things and working through your little traumas and everything. Of course, this is easier said than done. We know this because we all are dealing with deep-seated traumas and impressions from this lifetime, past lifetimes. And what I like to call it, we're dealing with these mini, like computer applications, right? They need change, they need some decoding. And you know what is the greatest healing factor in any decoding, in any healing of trauma? It is the big word love with capital letters, L-O-V-U. No, I'm joking, L-O-V-E. Love. That's what helps. So to finish my story, for now, the first process in healing is acknowledging your story, acknowledging your pain, acknowledging the suffering, because then we can discover good things behind it. We need to learn a very difficult and challenging part that has never been part of our educational system, and that is to learn how to embrace ourselves fully, right? Not like this part is good and that part is not good. You know, some people have a stronger heart, some people have stronger, stomach, some, so let's say in your body there's an organ that is not so good and not as good as the others. Do you say, oh no, I refuse this guy and I embrace the rest? What if it happens to be a brain? What's going to happen then? So you can do it. So you have to embrace the whole. The body is the typical example of what needs to be embraced. There are many parts of ourselves that we may not want to accept. We don't want to accept. And that's where the healing is needed. It could be that there's some aspect of our thinking, some aspect of feeling, our behavior, our body, the way it looks like, the feels like, or our past or our present, something like this. But you see, by pushing any aspects of ourselves away, such a process where we become distance from ourselves becomes only stronger. So the embracing is the word. There's a lovely lady whose name is Catherine, I think Catherine Hathaway or something like that, who said something like very beautiful. She said, I am shocked by the ignorance and wastefulness with which people who should know better throw away the things they do not like. You know, people don't like the experiences, especially of pain and suffering and everything. They don't like the marriages, all sorts of things, people and things like this. You see, if you throw away something, you will have to end up embracing it. And you throw things away, you experience very valuable teachers. Every one of these, you will have nothing to work with. You have no composting things. Your hands are empty. We have nothing to do. So most human beings require this a factor, or I would say this principle of embracing of a whole, meaning of the whole of the person, of the whole of the history, because that's what you have to do with other people too. And that's what we have to do collectively with everybody else. We know that there's no better teacher than our experience. Whether it's of love or it's the experience of loss, it is our experience. And the fact that it makes it into our experience, it makes it something very special. And as James Allen said, nothing can ever lead you to that realization that whatever the lesson that experience has to tell you, but your own experience, either failure or something like this. See, when you read the books about people burning their fingers, it's one thing. But when you burn them yourself, it's a total, it's a like a deeply etched teaching. You need no books anymore. You know what it feels like. So this is how also spiritual books are written. They're written in a way that, we must follow our own experience as a principal guide in healing. And I guess for the end, I just want to say one more thing. For the modern times, if I can just create some foundation for my friends to come in also. We need an embracing, that is the first part of healing. We need to do it within us. We need to do it with one another. We need to embrace that which is abandoned, hated, not liked, and that also means for all people, right? There's so much hatred in the world that needs healing. This hatred severs humans' lives, fosters persecution. You have all this human trafficking that is going on in different ways, hurls nations into hatred towards one another, and this is what we need. Okay, so what is the foundation of overcoming things like this, as we know in the healing, is first to establish that healing within us. So that's the story for now from me. I would like my friends to come in and, please say anything that is in your heart. So whoever wants to come next, please come.
I'll speak briefly. Thank you so much, Premji. So I guess I'm very empathic. So this year I've just been feeling so much for the world, for the yoga community, that I become like the keeper of secrets, like I know when people are losing their jobs and really struggling, and so my heart really breaks for not only myself, but it breaks for my friends and their extended families and people who have lost loved ones. So I'd like to speak to this concept that can be quite foreign, and that is to not insulate yourself from the pain of this world, and allowing our hearts to be broken open and letting the pain in. We become vehicles for transformation. And if we block this pain, we're actually preventing our own participation in the world's attempt to heal itself. So, as our hearts break open and the tears come, on the other side of that is, a lot of times emotional maturity, compassion, wisdom, and even joy. And that pain that comes is actually the medicine by which the earth begins to heal itself. And we become agents of that healing. So if you are just feeling so much right now, I think just kind of allowing the tears to come, let them flow. And I think that is a great step towards healing in itself. And that's my thought for the moment.
That's very lovely. You know, we all, not all of us, but it's written in the Yoga Sutras that we come to yoga to alleviate suffering. You know, to alleviate our suffering, and it's also a central tenet of Buddhism as well, that we're all suffering and we seek to alleviate that suffering. And the healing is that process of alleviating the suffering, not only for ourselves, but for everybody else. One of my teachers very frequently uses the metaphor of weaving, that we're weaving ourselves, right? And when I was in India, when I was in Varanasi, there are these incredible weavers that are using hand looms. And so you're watching them, you know, with the weft and the warp and the weft, you know, and they're taking the threads through. And the threads, of course, run perpendicular. They don't run, if you just run your threads in one direction, you're not going to be able to weave anything, right? So you have to look at something that's running counter to you, that is going to go through you in a way, in a wave, in a rhythmic pattern, as Prem has said, in order for us to weave ourselves, but then help take ourselves and put us in a patchwork where we weave ourselves with other people in a sangha. So one of the things about these Zoom things is that it looks like we're in a quilt, like a kind of crazy quilt, but we look like we're in this quilted pattern, and we're weaving ourselves together so that as a group, we know that we have support, that we have others that think similarly to the way we think. And then we can say, oh, I can bring that out into the world. I can absorb it in myself, but I can also then bring it out into the world and help aid the healing in that way. And I think the coronavirus is helping us identify even better who are the people that we need to be in contact with, be in sangha with, be in communications with, that help us do that societal weaving. And also in the process, the internal work gets done as well, because that you can't do the external work unless you're in the process of doing the internal work also. So I like to think of this time as an opportunity to reweave, an opportunity to unravel some of the strings. You know, if you've ever knitted or something like that, I'm a horrible sewer. And so I spent a lot of time when I was learning how to sew, taking the threads out and like resewing things. So we're kind of in this process of taking all those threads out, unraveling the yarn, and saying, well, how can we make this pattern better and more inclusive? And how can we be fairer to a greater number of people? So that's my thoughts about healing. And again, I'll turn it over to Premji.
Thank you so much. I wish I could listen to you more, both of you. You know, I love to be a listener, in fact, in this kind of webinars. I do appreciate your take on it. And I know the one thing that connects us all, even today in this webinar, I think is the quality of the heart, you know, the compassion and the sympathy that we have discovered in our life to be the best remedy for any problems that we may or the world may have. And I think what I would suggest that we do, on one hand, we need to think of others perhaps a little more today. For example, the question may be, who is hurting? Right? So it may be somebody that is very close to you. It could be, you know, your neighbor, or as you said, you know, Sita, some people who may have lost their jobs, they lost their loved ones in this very difficult fight. And of course, there's this daily stress of, like, if you're living in New York City, especially, you do not know if you're going to catch it someplace, or, you know, what you're going to do with your own life. You know, the things are not necessarily simplified by having to even isolate for 2 weeks. We know that. So what happens is that I think this is the time where really all lives matter. And if we can take maybe half an hour a day, in spite of our busy schedules, to find the time to connect with either people also who are not just close to us, but those who really are hurting in some ways, it will help that knitting, I think, to take place better. Because to knit something, I think in my perception, I'm not definitely not good at that, but I think we need help of others too. You know, we need to knit together. We're not going to knit things around them, but we're knitting together, some harmony, something like that. So, as in the teachings, compassion, we find that the ability to enter into somebody's life, to their heart, to their thoughts, to fathom their life, to really try to understand their experience is the fundamental thing to empathy, I think, to this kind of process of healing. Because when we are, I think, in order to actually be able to appreciate that, to be able to feel empathy and sympathy, you have to rely on your own experience of suffering. You have to think in your own mind the times when you felt really at your worst, with no help. You were literally on your knees, and there were at least some moments in your life when you felt that. And if you could dig that sadness, that abandonment, the loneliness from your heart into a living kind of experience, then use that to enter into other people's hearts, then you will know what people go through. I mean, we may know, we may say that we know, we may do this like, by using our words and everything, but unless the action comes as a result of it, I think we don't know it. Because we can know it in our minds to a great degree. We can meditate on other people's suffering, but what really has to happen is we do something practical about it. So you can start in a simple way by, writing emails to people, or checking on them, or giving donations to people who need, or maybe food or something, or whatever it is. There are lots of people today who, their voices are not necessarily heard, but they suffer, and we can start with our yoga communities and everything. We can think of the plans how we can do it, and certainly do this in a safe kind of a way that we have to make sure that we stay as healthy as possible. For the purposes of some inner healing, I would say that we write a list of things. Let's say things that we would like to practice, some virtues and behaviors that support our healing, that support our dreams, aspirations, and purpose. Like we all want to reach some heights in this life. We didn't come here just to live a mediocre life, especially as yoga people. We have excelled to some degree to step out of a mediocre kind of a, difficult. I mean, when I say mediocre, it's a difficult life where there is no light really, like God is not prevalent in your life. Everything else is like so real, but there's no light. There's nothing to look forward to, which is how most people live. And in terms of a self-healing, we do these practices. There's no beating on the head, anything. That's Swami Shivananda always says, you can make wonders right here and right now. I believe in that. So we are permanently moving into some future until one day the very concept of time dissolves. This is when we get to the place of self-realization. So then practices like this should be there as part of our spiritual practices, but also we have to identify what self-healing we need. Now this is back to self-healing. We need to reflect on causes, different types of beliefs that as I always say, beliefs are very pervasive. They can influence you in ways you cannot even believe it. They interlink with instincts, so it's hard to determine this. There's only one way you can ever conquer your lower mind or heal your traumas or anything, and that is to invite the light into your life. All other ways, your will is not sufficient. My will is not sufficient. You can say, I don't want this. Whatever, you can resist something that you hate, and by resisting it, you make it stronger sometimes, but it doesn't go. You need to bring the light. And that's done through daily sadhana, everything that you do. And when you're reflecting on your life and your healing, it's important to, there's a need to grasp the significance of particular experience or experiences in our lives and their specific relevance to us. Then such a change of thought should be backed up by a lot more practice, and again, bringing, as I say, the light down, because you need to open up a little bit like in AA, they do that. They have to open up to higher power. That this is absolutely necessary for all of us, not just AA. We need a higher power. Another thing that needs to be addressed in healing processes, the question of a resistance. There will be a resistance in growing. In fact, the resistance is a natural part of growth. And sometimes there are kickbacks and all kinds of things. So that will also be very useful to address, and with same thing, embracing, working through it, and gradually reaching a greater degree of integration of yourself or within yourself. So these are my little thoughts on healing. I would like to now invite you all to share anything you would like to, if possible. Please unmute yourself. And if you like to, say something, please do.
I just wanted to say hi. And you guys, my computer's in my kitchen, and I used to doing a long time ago, I used to do Prem's workshops during dinner time with my boys, and they're in the background and they were tuning in. And I think it's all, I like this kind of language and these kind of thoughts to, kind of fill our home. It brings light to our home during, some times that maybe aren't always good. So anyway, thank you all. I'll unmute myself now, but I appreciate this is probably one of my first real workshops back in present with you, Prem. And so it's nice to see you all. I'm in Ohio. I don't know if anybody else is in Ohio. Y'all are most of you in New York? Mostly. So anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kalyani. Please, anyone else would like to say a few little words here and there? Don't be shy.
Hey.
Here's Katyani coming.
Sorry.
Hello. No, please do that.
I wrote down that healing is a mindset. And so like what you're saying, it's in being systematic and with an open heart, it sort of kind of sets a course of how to embrace something and be there for yourself, because that next person that you're going to see is going to need you. And if you're not the light for you and open that light for you, you can't be that for them. And they're on a journey, and maybe they're stuck and you have some kind of piece of their resolution, and you won't be able to give that to them. So that idea of helping others in need, if you have the mindset, then it will happen naturally and intuitively. You'll be supporting and helping others to grow and heal automatically almost. If you're practicing it, sadhana, and being with, groups like everyone here. So making the shift in your mind and being systematic about it so you can be the light for others. So I like the way you all articulated that for me tonight, to sort of integrate it into my own quilt so I can be that for whoever and whatever.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Katyani. I'm buying a yarn myself. See what happens tonight. The cat will help. So please, anyone else like to add, just don't be shy. We're a little kind of a family here.
I'm gonna say hi and thank you. It's such a pleasure to be with everybody today and share these beautiful thoughts. So thank you, Premji and Sita and Brett and everybody who spoke. It's beautiful and wonderful. And I just wanted to say that this mindset, I like the idea to have to help others, right? So embrace those challenges and understand that everybody else is suffering, maybe more, and just practice that light and help others to see the light. So this is what I'm feeling and thinking. So I'm grateful for that, and I want to stay closer to the nature or my body and try to really come closer to that intuition, to take out all that darkness and invite more light into my own nature here, so I can help others. And it's beautiful to be here, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, anyone else?
Hi. I just, it occurred to me today that humans or human type species, we've been around for 6 million years. And so if we believe that we've had many lifetimes, we are just skin bags of trauma from all those many millions of years of lifetimes of suffering. And so I think there's certainly a culmination happening. I'm also, you really got me thinking. It was wonderful. Thank you both all so much for this. But I remember I was in the Peace Corps when I was in my 20s. I went off to a third world country, and that wasn't as bad as coming back to the United States and seeing how we lived with such privilege. And I remember having a mental breakdown in the cereal aisle because of all the choices. And I do think that this is our time to really, how we have empathy for others is through, most people don't live like we do in the United States. And so I think it's our turn, certainly it appears to be our turn to really have that experience of empathy. And like you said, you can't heal until you have the trauma. And that really hit me, this is part of that path. The resistance, you're right, it's just gonna keep coming, but worse. So thank you so much. So good.
Awesome, thank you. Anjani, do you want to add something a little bit? Yeah, no. Okay.
If I may say hi, everyone. Hi. I'm an unusual series of events. I'm having a hard time putting together some thoughts. So if you'll be patient with me, I will be so grateful. Grateful regardless to be in this space and to listen and to take notes and reflect and breathe. It seems that as we've all gained access to the world, and however you want to interpret that, as we gain access to the world, there's this inclination to feel crushed by it, to feel crushed by the greater struggle of humanity, the repetitive struggle, the repetitive crimes against other human beings, other life forms, the pain of humanity at large. And it seems that in recent light, or at least in the recent social construct that at least I know I'm able to operate from, that we so often forget, even as we sit here in this space and we talk about making a list of behaviors and creating a vision, there's nothing wrong with reflecting back, with all of this access to the world, reflecting back a vision for the world. It's natural because now we can see all of it, right? It's so much more apparent. Everything is out there. But I think that we forget it is our greatest strength to work within our own village, within our own backyard, within our own people. That's how we were designed. That's how we've survived 6 million years, through that strength, because that's what we are able to do so well. We alone are completely not prepared and incapable of solving the world's problems of humanity. But I think that we're meant to use that access to the world as a mirror and an inspiration to ignite, to learn the lessons and to work within our village and to start in our backyard. And I personally am still feeling tumultuous about this, the newsline phrase of all lives matter, because it is crushing everything good that could come from it. It's become so fraught with ill intention, and it's become so fraught with controversy, but it's because the concept of all, it crushes the spirit of every, right? Of starting with the self, moving to our parent, our sibling, moving to our neighbor. And it's important that we remember that that's what we are all as human beings, as living conscious life forms, capable of, is starting in the village and letting that reverberate. And if you happen to be one of astrophysics, you know that the way that our Earth was designed is not unique. We do love to celebrate our unique ability to have survived, the luck that we had to have survived. But there is nothing unique, because it's happening in 7 other planets that we're all rotating in the same direction, and we're all spinning around the same star in the same direction. And regardless of a few mishaps and events, like, we were lucky enough to have survived all of that. But I think when you applying that concept of non-uniqueness, not in a negative light, of talking about like cellular movement, moving within our own cell, sparking goodness, working in goodness and good intent, working in light in our own cell to strengthen that cell so that it positively affects the next cell, the next group of cells. I think there's a lot. I personally would love to I've been writing notes like crazy and some side notes like crazy, but just as a reflection of this discussion, I think it's really important, and for me at least, to remember that it's not so much all that crushing sense. It's not so much the world, but every day, every neighbor, right? Every neighbor, even though I don't live next door to them, every neighbor that I meet, because I'm a neighbor of the world, right? So it's not any less significant if I'm not able to fight world hunger. It's just as significant to the world if I'm able to fight for human rights where I live locally, and work on changing the mindset around where I live locally, because there's great pain, great trauma there. And again, going back to what Prem said, acknowledging my story, acknowledging my identity, the good, the bad, taking not just wins or losses, gains or losses, but all of it in whole. Yeah, thank you, Prem.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was beautiful. Wonderful. So I think hello. Maybe Anjani, you wanted to say something? One sentence, one.
The problem when I switch technologies and I don't know how it works, I'm like, wait, how do I unmute myself? No, this has been a really great conversation. I mean, it reinforces so many conversations I feel I've had with, both Prem and Brett, and probably Brett over many more years than that surprises me, actually. And I think the things that really stuck out in my head are, that the obstacles are the path, that we have to recognize that without them, we're not going to grow. So while this year has thrown more obstacles than I ever would have thought imaginable, you know, there is, and my husband and I talk about this particularly in light of the political situation, is that, you know, hopefully this darkness that we've had, that it's such an obstacle that we will overcome it. We will get to start fresh and heal from it. It remains to be seen, but I've got my fingers crossed.
Beautiful, thank you. And Anjani, Katie, you probably didn't think of any tennis obstacles that we have been experiencing also. I'm teasing. Okay, so first of all, if there's anyone else want to say anything, Satyavati, Shankari, still a few people here. Oh, Purna Devi. Yeah, I think you should also say something to feel, you know, you're actually leading the satsang as well, not just listening.
Thank you so much for everything. It really hit home for me. And also I kept thinking every time how I can pass whatever I've learned and gained here to my kids so they can take that further in their own, in each of their lives. But this is really just a wonderful experience, very supportive of, I feel supported in whatever I'm going through right now. So yeah, this is very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, wonderful. Shankari, what about you? Some little smile for everybody.
Hi. I mean, like, I wrote a couple of books full of stuff, but I have nothing to say. This is not my forte, speaking. I guess, I don't know, I was thinking about healing. It's sort of like, I mean, in some terms, there's a lot of different ways you can think of healing, but it's like a humbling of yourself. You know, if you can look back at your old pain, your past hurts, and without disdain, without wincing, if you can actually just look at it, the source of it, and come to terms with that, then you're going to grow. Otherwise, you'll stay stuck in that. And every experience you have now is going to be a reflection of experience you had then, but it's not the same. And you'll always judge your new experiences based on old experiences. So if you can learn to look at that for what it was, and then try to grow from there, not always easy, and it takes a lot of time. But then maybe that your new experiences won't have those same hurts. You know, everybody says that, oh, why do I always fall into this position? Like you said earlier, why does this keep happening? It's because it's not really happening. It doesn't keep on happening. You're just looking at it as the same way that you looked at the past. And there's this experience there that you can't let go of, and you keep associating it with everything that you step into. So you're not moving on. You're still stuck in the past. So every experience is not a new experience. So I guess I'm trying to learn a lot about myself and that, and my relationships and work relationships, every relationship, you know, and just apply that new eyes.
Beautiful, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. So, David, you want to add a little bit something? A little bit.
This whole thing was beautiful and eye-opening, and I have a problem with just the division of people. And it's, you want to help and you want to start some kind of healing, but it seems like it's an impossible mission, because when you try to voice an opinion, it's just nobody wants to listen to anyone else's opinion. You know, I respect other people's opinions. I want people to respect my opinion of just what's going on in the world. And I just have a hard time seeing how we're ever going to all get together again. you know, and just how do you bring all that love back? So that's something I think about a lot, and this was really eye-opening, and it felt good to listen to people who have the same thoughts that I do. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. I have to say that, you know, we cannot change the world in any faster way than it's changing itself, but one person at a time, you know, one word at a time, one email at a time. As Sylvia said, you know, backyard is the first place to begin our healing, like meaning your house and how you really treating your partners, and but you're going to encounter the same issues when you're dealing with other people that you have with your own self, you know. And there are many voices that we hear in our mind, and some are, you know, in some of these voices are kind of accepting who we are, and some voices that say, no, you're not good enough. And you know, the love is all inclusive. The love just accepts for what it is. If you have that capacity to accept what it is, that's all that it needs. We often work too hard at kind of just loving somebody, meaning, you know, we're trying to please them. But what just if you say, well, let them be the way they are. I give my opinion. If they want it, it's good. If they don't want it, it's okay. I do my little bit. You know, I always say to people, I'm not the Mother Teresa. I'm not Dalai Lama. You know, I'm not any of these people. You know, I'm some little person like everybody else, but what makes that little into big is if it's just the bigness of your heart. If you can give it even to a single person, that's all you need to do. And for that particular moment, or that particular day, that's just where we are. You know, that I think I always believe only in small victories. This is how I trained myself also, starting from a scratch, from a 0 to come to, let's say, 5. I had to do one small thing at a time, and it was not always easy. And I think that's what it is. And when I use the expression "all life matters," I don't use it in a necessarily political way that it's been used. I mean, the whole nature matters. Everything that is part of the nature matters, because if all life matters, meaning I am all that life. This is Vedanta in practice, a little bit. Thank you so much, everybody. I want to first just give a little time to Sita and Mahadevi to conclude their little stories, and then I will stop recording. And if anyone wants to have this recording, you're welcome to have it. I recorded all of your also contributions, so don't be shy to look at that. There have been some wonderful statements from all of you.
Thank you all. It was so nice to hear your hearts and your perspectives. I just want to kind of seal with continuing to go forward without expectations, because it may get worse before it gets better. And I think that, you know, I think Gandhi said the victory is in the doing, not the outcome. So just keep showing up for yourself, keep showing up for your neighbors, like Siobhan was saying. The immediate people that surround you, there's just so much work to be done right here in our backyard. Yeah, so thank you. I'll see you soon. Maybe we'll do this again 2021.
Oh, this is a must program. This is like a soap opera with no end. Yeah. Mahadevi, please.
Well, it's just so wonderful and to meet you all and to have an opportunity to talk to you. I think that one of the great gifts that Prem has given me has been the ability to talk in these kinds of forums and further my teaching and further my thoughts about these issues that face each one of us as we go through our own personal journey, and then take that personal journey and then, you know, what do we do with it? You know, how do we sit with it? And to remember that every single one of us is on our own personal journey, and that journey will necessarily look different. And that difference is a strength and a beautiful thing. And those compilations of traumas that we were talking about, those traumas upon for the 6 million years that we've been around, all take a slightly different shape, right? They all take a slightly different shape in us. And so we overcome those, and then we can look at somebody in a different way and say, oh, I recognize that person. To Prem's issue, I recognize the same thing that I've gone through in somebody else. Sometimes even if they haven't seen it, you can recognize it. And that is the beauty of relationship and the beauty of compassion and the beauty of the work that we do in the world. And I'm very, very thankful to be able to talk to you all about that. So thank you so much. And thank you, Premji, for allowing me to have this opportunity. And Sita as well.
You're most welcome. A wonderful co-host. We're all equal. Now, one more person needs to conclude something. That's Shivakami. You wanted to say something. You're unmuted. That's it. Go for it.
Yes. Hi. Happy to be here tonight. I really, really am. I've been looking forward to this for a few days. I really liked during this whole pandemic, I really do have a bit of detachment from what's going on in the outside world. And I didn't realize that. So thank you, Liz, because I do feel a sense of calmness. Yes, my heart is broken. And what a lovely thing to say that when our heart's broken, that we have space to have light come in. It's beautiful. And it's a beautiful way. These are just beautiful tools that we have to settle ourselves and to know that no matter what, we do heal. I've healed physically throughout the years and through grief. It's been tremendous. And yoga's taught that. We're going to breathe and we're going to come out of this okay. There's no doubt. And I just love that everybody can come together. It's just a beautiful thing. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. A beautiful end of the story here. Maybe I was just having a thought. I don't know, maybe we can talk about compassion and different things next time. So we can talk about compassion in action and how to practice it, something like that. It would be very valuable for all of us, and you can all contribute. We all co-host. So I'm looking forward to seeing again very soon. I will just finish with 3 ohms, so then we can stop the recording. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Namah Shivaya. Om everyone.